In this video, we are going to answer a few major questions like how Jane Foster becomes the new Thor, where does he get the new Mjolnir, as in Avengers Endgame, Captain America returned the old Mjolnir back to 2013, and what's up with the real Thor, does he become unworthy? So without further ado, let's try to answer these questions.
Sorry to hear that Jane dumped you.
She didn't dump me, you know. I dumped her. It's a mutual dumping.
At San Diego Comic-Con 2019, Marvel unveiled its Phase 4 plans, and one of the biggest surprise was the announcement of Thor 4, with Jane Foster returning to MCU as the new mighty Thor. The last time we saw Jane Foster was in Thor: The Dark World, where she was the host of the reality stone, which was then in the form of the Ether. In Endgame, yes, we did see Jane, but that was just recycled footage from Thor: The Dark World. Since Thor 4 is confirmed to take place after the events of Avengers Endgame, it is likely to be set after the year 2023, and it would have been at least 10 years since Jane's last appearance in the MCU. So what has she been up to all this time? Did she turn to dust after Thanos' snap, or did she survive the decimation and was an adventure of her own that made her worthy? To get answer to these questions, let's turn to the comic books. As Thor Love and Thunder is inspired by Jason Aaron's take on the character. In the original scene storyline, Thor Odinson loses his worthiness and thus the capability to wield Mjolnir. And it all happened because Nick Fury whispers something in Thor's ears. And as it turns out, only few words were enough to make Thor unworthy. So in case if you still doubt the saying that words cut deeper than sword, then this would serve as a fitting example. What were those mighty words that made Thor unworthy, and how Nick Fury knew about it? Well, as it turns out, all it took was 3 simple words: Gore was right. Now who is Gore, you ask, and what was he right about? Well, Gore is a villain who is rumored to make his MCU debut in Thor Love and Thunder, along with the other infamous villain, the Enchantress. I will do a separate video on the villains of Thor 4. But talking about the Jane Foster Thor, she was suffering from cancer when she was chosen by the Mjolnir to be the new Thor when Odinson lost his worthiness. When Jane Foster becomes the new mighty Thor, she possessed all the powers of Thor like super strength, super stamina, and incredible durability, and she could even summon thunder and change the course of Mjolnir mid-air. She had an incredible run at being Thor, but unfortunately, she could no longer afford to continue playing Thor, as she found out that transforming into Thor was worsening her cancer. In other words, she being Thor was slowly killing her. She even loses her Mjolnir when she sacrifices it to kill the monster, Mangog. Mangog was an ultra-powerful beast with immense strength and power, and he was capable of destroying Asgard and a lot more. But Jane Foster Thor came up with a brilliant plan to destroy Mangog. She changed the monster to Mjolnir and throws the hammer directly into the sun, which not only kills Mangog but also destroys the Mjolnir. All this time when Jane Foster was wielding the hammer, unworthy Thor was carrying nothing much but some sort of axe, which wasn't exactly a stormbreaker, and he had no Thor force or lightning powers. At the end of that story, Jane Foster reverts back to being a normal human and undergoes a cancer treatment, and Thor Odinson regains his worthiness. It would be interesting to see how these series of events play out in the MCU in Thor Love and Thunder. I don't necessarily think that Thor would lose his worthiness in the MCU. He will continue to wield the Stormbreaker, but a villain as powerful as Gore coupled with the Enchantress might prove too much for Thor to handle, and thus we might get another Thor with new Mjolnir. It remains to be seen where and how does Jane Foster get the new hammer. The simplest explanation to that is the Asgardians would forge a new hammer to protect themselves from the new threat, and instead of choosing anyone else, the new Mjolnir picks up Jane Foster as the new mighty Thor. Other likely scenarios, parallel universes, and in case parallel universes are involved, then we might see a Doctor Strange cameo just like the one in Thor Ragnarok. And one other thing that we know for sure about Thor 4 is that it will be set before the Guardians of the Galaxy 3. The ending of Avengers Endgame shut up Thor with Guardians, and we are expecting to see Thor again in the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. But now that Marvel has announced Thor 4 will release in 2021, and we don't yet have a release date for Guardians 3, James Gunn, the director of Guardians of the Galaxy series, confirmed in a tweet that Thor 4 will be set before Guardians 3, which will likely hit theaters in 2023. But let's not forget that James Gunn had the script for Guardians 3 ready way before Infinity War, and in case if he wasn't fired, then movie would have been released in 2021. But now since James Gunn is working on DC's Suicide Squad Part 2, he will start working on Guardians 3 after Suicide Squad hits theaters in 2021. That Thor might not make an appearance in Guardians 3, but since Adam Warlock is set to make his MCU debut, as would initially play the villain in GOTG 3. Thor's presence in the movie may balance out the team, but at this point, it might be too soon to say anything. Let me know in the comments, do you think Thor 4 will lead to Guardians of the Galaxy 3 or will it set up Thor 5? With that, we'll bring this video to an end. Once again, thanks for watching and don't forget to like and subscribe for more upcoming content.